Hey traders, David Frost, My Strategic Forecast. You're here for another episode of Common Sense Market Analysis. Today is Wednesday, December 4, 2024. We're looking at a daily chart of the SPY or Spider, which is the proxy for the S&P 500. What do we have on the docket today? She's riding the trend line. As you can see, Mrs. Market today did in fact once again for the second time reach the trend line. Let's go down to a smaller time frame to see precisely what happened. For example, on this 5-minute chart, you'll see where price hits this trend line pretty much to the penny. Now, what's also interesting about that is at the same time, so let's say we're using the same 5-minute chart and we go over to the ES contract and we'll go to the regular session so we get the same chart set up. It's kind of one of those funny how that works where today the trend line coincided with pretty much ES 6100, a semi-fat round number. Just interesting how those things work out. She was riding the trend line, could have hit it any day she wanted to, but then the ES wouldn't have been at 6,100. I just find that irony, if you will, but in my mind, there are no accidents nor coincidences throughout the market. Switching gears for a second, BMRN, Biomarin Pharmaceuticals, right off the Lazy Swing Trader Automagical Algo System, in at 64.14, first profit taken up near the highs today. The rest is what we call a risk-free, emotionless trade. Now, what happens with the spiders? Well, they're at a trend line. It doesn't mean that price is going to get rejected at the trend line. It may get rejected at the trend line, or she may continue riding the trend line. And as you'll notice, it's an upsloping trend line, and therefore price does creep higher each and every day as the trend line moves up. There's nothing that says by mid next week the S&P can't be at 611, 612, 613. That can absolutely happen. What we have is a breakout scenario to new highs. So what we know is a couple of things. First, the market will be back to run a test of the most recent breakout area. We'll just call it 600, give or take, for argument's sake. That's item number one. Might want to write that down, put it on a sticky note. Number two, she's at new highs. Therefore, we don't really have a bona fide target. We have no point of reference. But what we do have are signs and or signals of a trend change. Those are things that are taught in the Lazy E-mini Trader course. They've also been discussed and taught recently and retaught in the MSF Masterclass series. We don't have that today, but when and if the market gives us a sign and or signal of a trend change, what it does is provides you something to trade against. You're able to trade against the high of that particular candle, whichever one it falls into, whichever category it falls into, any close, meaning daily close, above that high on a signal of a trend change, and the trade would then be incorrect, and you would have to close it out. But that gives you something to trade against and keeps the risk in the small and fast category if need be, meaning having to cover the trade. Or better said, cut and run. As it stands now, from a weekly chart perspective, we know she's getting a little bit far from home base. Doesn't mean she can't go farther, but once she gets too far from home base, she has a tendency to pull back toward home base a little bit to work off some of the fictitious overbought condition. Just saying. Did anybody make money today in the live room and inside the numbers? The short answer is yes, they did. These are the early notes, the 0 dark 30 notes. What I urge you to do is pause the video, read the notes, go back to the chart, and double check the work. We're going to focus on one thing in particular within the 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time post, and it is, in fact, 605 is a natural place the bulls can defend the tape if there's an early shakeout, give or take. If they were to get below that, net support was 604.32 to 603.40. So 605 was the first place where she can defend the tape. 605, the low of day, happens to be 604.95. That deserves a, how you doing? And then she grinded up towards the trend line. There's no magic there. It's all in here. Everything you need to know from an inside the numbers and SPY perspective to be successful trading in the SPY during the trading day. Doesn't matter what you trade, whether it's options on the SPY, exchange traded products, futures products, ES, MES. It doesn't make any difference. They're all directional trades. But wait. There's more. We had some stocks on the move today. Only two available on the board, Chewy and FL, which is Foot Locker. That one didn't hit its entry objective. However, Chewy did. So we're going to take a look at that one. Entry $30.49. Getting a buzz cut at the opening bell. As you can see, stock closed yesterday. Closing print $33.58. Getting a buzz cut down to $30 today. Here are two numbers. It's a zone, 30.49, 29.75. Bounced it back, ripped it back up in the other direction. Nice trade today in Chewy. We had plenty of money made today in the live room with participation in Chewy. But wait, there's more. Let's just pick one out of a hat. We have a whole list of markets that we cover each and every day. And let's take silver, support number one, $31.06. As you can see, 8 a.m., she was down there. She hit a rocket ride up in the other direction. This was resistance number one, resistance number two. These are called exits. You can see the importance of the top one, 31.75. Back test, bounced off of it. That tells you that number is, in fact, important. Check out the markets that we cover each and every day. The numbers are on the board, bright and early enough to take an 8 o'clock a.m. silver futures trade. How do you like dem apples? I'm telling you, pause the video, read the notes, go back to the chart to double check the work. Everything you need is in here each and every morning. Now, what's going on over in Camp IWM? We can say she's been eating time off the clock for the last 6 or 7 trading sessions, is what we can say at present. Above all the moving averages, the trend is in fact your friend. She's staying in this range up here that does create a flag of the bullish, flaggish pattern variety. Here's your flag pole. There's your flag. If she breaks the chain and gets down below this gap down here, we talked about this a couple of times already, that will change things, but only getting below the 20-period moving average will raise a big-time eyebrow at present in Camp IWM. Right now, it's a bullish, flaggish situation. Nothing's changed. Now, what about the folks down at the transportation department? Let's talk about this for a moment. We had a discussion about this one in the live room today. I think it's important. What I told traders in the live room, if they get below a certain number, it could be trouble across the markets. It's my favorite canary in the coal mine, second favorite leading indicator next to Camp IWM or the Russell 2000 index. The question is, what was that number and what happened? This is what traders in the live room were looking at. And if you go down to a 5-minute chart, you can see what happened. What I said was, you should get a bounce off that number. If they get below and stay below and close below that number, that's going to be trouble, and that's going to be a flare up in the air, a signal that other markets could follow suit on the downside. It was kind of one of those line in the sand places for team transports. What I said today was they should get there. They did get there. We'll give that one a funny how that works and a how you doing. So therefore, we'll leave it at roughly 17,000. Below 17,000 will be trouble across Mr. and Mrs. Market land. And that will filter not only throughout the transports, but it will populate throughout the other market indices, the Dow, the S&P, the Qs, all that stuff. That's what we were saying. Speaking of the Qs, what about the Q people? Up $6 today or 1.25%. That's a pretty decent day for the Q people. Nothing wrong here, nothing to see here other than the fact that they're getting a little extended from home base. They can certainly go a little bit higher, but how much higher is the question before another garden variety pullback would be at hand. If they continue on this melt up rocket ride situation, write this number down, 533.15 would be a target. Are they going to get there tomorrow? Probably not. Could they get there by the end of the year? Yeah, why not? I'm not saying they will. I'm just saying I have a number, and the number is a formula-driven number, and if they're going to continue higher, that becomes a target. Put it that way. What about the XLF? The Lone Ranger on the downside for the most part. While transports were down 22 points today at the end of the day, it's a little bit of a rounding error, but the XLF down again about 0.4%, 20 cents on the day into the 20-period moving average. I told traders in the live room today I was looking for 49.90. That was my number. They didn't get there. Maybe tomorrow, we'll see. But if there are cracks underneath the surface of the market, and they do materialize in the financial sector, that will be a canary-ish situation. We're watching for them to hold 50. 50 is an important place. We talked about it. Big psychological thing. 50.09 was the low today. $50 is important for the XLF to hold above for the bull case. Write that down. Put it on a sticky note. And then you flip over to Smashmouth today and you notice what? Well, let's get these lines off the board. What you do notice is that she had an up day up $4, 1.69%. Above all the moving averages, it was a gap and go type of situation. And therefore, above all the moving averages, what is your friend? The trend is your friend. Above all the moving averages on the weekly chart. And once again, we can begin to build a case, and we did this last night, for a bullish, flaggish, pullback-ish pattern that will ultimately make another run up toward the highs out of this pattern. If they break above this top end of the channel, that would be what's going on. We'll see if they have the mustard in the jar to do it. Above all the moving averages, the trend is your friend. When you look at the both sides of the tape, if you will, or be the umpire calling balls and strikes, you would have to also look at the fact that you have a high and still have a potential lower high situation. But the trend is your friend. The trend is also a dominant thing. And right now, the trend is your friend. She is dominant on the weekly chart, on the daily chart, and certainly above all the moving averages. Trend is up on the monthly chart. Got a bunch of tails going here, but what you also do have is a market that's basically been going sideways. And when you look at a monthly chart, what's been happening? Just a bunch of noise going back and forth, eating time off the clock in an uptrend with rising moving averages. That's bullish in and of itself. That does not directly mean there has to be new highs, but that is factual in what's been happening on the monthly chart. Period. Full stop. Have I told you how much I appreciate each and every one of you? Without you, these videos are not possible. That is true and accurate information. We're pulling the ripcord here today. I'm David Frost, My Strategic Forecast. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Common Sense Market Analysis.